Geocachomaniacs.
Geo Gearheads.
Well, welcome to Geo Gearheads. This is a weekly show about geocaching and geolocation games. I'm Chris of the Northwest, along with our illustrious and sometimes illustrated host, Daryl W4.
Tonight, I'm mostly just illuminated, though.
Illuminated.
I really feel like I've got a lot more light today, but maybe it's just because I've been stuck in my cave too long.
There you go.
I'm one of the few people who actually still gets to go to the work, though. So at least I get outside to the car and then, you know.
I'm considered essential personnel. However, I work from home. So, you know,
so you still get to go to work.
My big decision in the morning is, do I put on shoes or not?
Nah. Yeah, no. I think no shoes are better. And this occurred to me a couple of days ago, listening to a bunch of the other podcasts. So what a strange time we're in. And if you go back and listen to these in like 3 or 4 months, it's all going to be really weird. But like everyone is talking about only one thing.
Right. It's
amazing.
Isn't it though? Yeah. I agree with you, Daryl. In a couple of months, I think all this is going to blow over. And if it doesn't, in a couple of months, you're listening to me, you think, well, that guy was silly. Well, that could be the case.
Whether it blows over or not, we're all going to be sick of it. And no one's going to want to talk about it anymore.
Exactly. I'm just curious on how it's going to change our culture. I mean, are handshakes out forever now?
It might be,
some things like that. I think, an incident like this changes culture. 100 years ago, the Spanish flu hit, and I think what did it affect? 500,000 people around the world. So
I think it was more than that, but
it was a huge number.
Yeah.
And we get through it. We're going to get through this.
We will. And I do wonder what's going to happen. And one of my theories that I was talking about before the show is we're going to see potentially like international flyers not being able to travel if they have a fever.
Mm-hmm.
I just have the feeling that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they can do it for domestic, at least not in the US. But I think we're going to see it internationally.
It wouldn't surprise me if they began that type of protocol out of this. You look at SARS several years ago, where same thing. If you had a fever, no, you can't get on. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. And that's the thing is I think they're going to do it as an emergency protocol for domestic flights. So probably, because they're talking about, they think that this is going to keep coming back seasonally.
Exactly.
So during season, they're probably going to say, nope, can't do it anymore. No flying. But I don't know that they're going to be able to get away with it flying domestically.
Interesting. Well, I was way off. GSM times 2 says 50 million.
50 million. Okay. That
flu. So,
yeah, that sounds a lot more than what I thought it was, but it's more in line. I was thinking millions.
Yeah.
But this is not a podcast about coronavirus or beer.
What? Oh.
This is a corona-free show.
Yes, it is. And if I cough, it happens to be seasonal allergies. I'm not sick in any way.
But we do have lots of people drinking with us tonight. No corona. And we're going to be talking with, what do you guys call yourself? The committee for Geo Woodstock?
The Busy Beavers.
The Busy Beavers. Okay, well, that's a lot more interesting than just the committee.
Very Canadian.
I wonder why.
Purely coincidence.
It has nothing to do with the fact that they're, north of us.
No.
It's because we're building a dam event.
Okay, that sounds better.
Nicely played.
Well, welcome to the show, and we'll start off with going around the table real quick. So first off, most of you are going to recognize the Land Monkey.
Hey, guys. It is an absolute pleasure to be back here again with Daryl and Chris and my other beaver friends.
And next up, we'll do Christy of the Geo Travelers.
Hey guys, nice to be on the show for the first time.
Pleasure having you. And then Land Sharks are here, both of Helen and Chris.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for
Pleasure to
having
be
us.
here. Thank you so much.
Now, I do feel kind of obligated since we're talking about the beverage of choice tonight. Maybe we should get you guys to tell us what you're drinking. So, Land Monkey, why don't you get to start?
So I have a Phillips Black Forest Cake Chocolate Porter tonight, and it is delicious.
Wow, that sounds a lot too rich for me, but delicious.
It's dessert and beer all at the same time.
I just have a glass of water. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Nice clean BC water out of the tap.
That's all I have too, but it works for the
Christy?
Beavers.
I've got a Hoyne Pilsner, and in case you guys start being mean, I've got a Canadian Club whiskey as a backup.
So I gather that you're betting or hoping at least that we'll be mean.
If you're not, she'll drink it anyways. Yeah. And I just finished the last of my Hoyne Pilsner. But it's nice to see that even Jay is drinking a Vancouver Island beer. So all Vancouver Island beer.
That's right.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, we are going to be talking about some of the stuff that you might want to know for making that road trip to Geo Woodstock this year. Also, probably if, any of the 2020 events out that way. But why don't we start with some gear recommendations?
Absolutely. One of the key things that we'll say for a road trip out to British Columbia, Abbotsford, Pacific Northwest, check our website, geowoodstock.com. We've got tons of great information on there. Mostly everything you're going to need to know to plan your trip to Geo Woodstock, to the Pacific Northwest. There's tons of great information on that site. Whether you use the information specifically for Geo Woodstock or any trip to the Pacific Northwest, it's a fantastic resource. So we'd really encourage you to take a look there. And I'm going to throw in a shameless plug next. You can find everything you want to know about visiting Southwest BC in my new book that just went live on Amazon. And if you want more info about that, watch Caching in the Northwest next, and we'll give you all the deets on that.
I think one of the things that's really interesting about our location for the event is that within a 45-minute drive, you can be deep in the city. You can be in sort of the rural areas where the event actually is taking place, or you can be in some of the wildest sort of out of the way areas that you can imagine in the mountains. So there's a wide, depending on what you're interested in, there's a wide range of gear that could be applicable.
Isn't it amazing here in the area that we live? A short drive, you go from city to coast to mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's absolutely beautiful. Everything you could ever want, if you could get out.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking about getting out and getting around, what is the best way to get around for Geo Woodstock?
Christy, do you want to grab this one?
Yeah, sincerely, it's going to be a car. Out in the Fraser Valley, there isn't a lot of public transit. So get yourself a rental car or bring your own car. It'll allow you the flexibility to get around to all the caches, adventure labs, any geo tours, and all the events.
I think car sharing also is good. If you know other people that are going to be there and you can split using a car. There is some transit around, but it's not. There's not like a major transit route between, say, Vancouver and Abbotsford. And even if you've got one of the nearby hotels, it's not an easy walk to the venue. So you're still going to be looking at other means of transportation.
Well, I'm always a fan of when you're going to these events, going with some friends, and you can rent one car and divvy up some of those responsibilities. How is it for getting across the border, though, if we're coming across the U.S.? And I know, Jay, you've had a lot more experience than I have with that.
Yeah, it's really easy, to be honest. There's 4 border crossings within a half-hour drive of the venue itself, and there's one that's within minutes of the venue itself. And they all have nexus lanes, so if that's that can accelerate your pass through of the border. So it's really going to be easy. There's obviously going to you have to keep in mind you are crossing a border to come into Abbotsford. The whole city of Abbotsford sits almost right on the U.S.-Canada border, so you're really in good shape from that perspective. But keep in mind you are going into a different country, so you'll need your passport or your Nexus card. And Nexus is another word for the trusted traveler card if people aren't familiar with that term. But you can't just have your driver's license and get across the border. So you have to be planning ahead for that part for sure.
Yeah, which is probably our biggest tip of the night, is that really anyone is going to want to have their passport at the ready, because it is close enough for the Canadians that they might want to dip down into Washington and grab some caches or whatever. Yeah, so make sure that you have the passport, because you will not be able to get into the U.S. without that. And I believe Canada still allows you to cross the border with a birth certificate and driver's license. Is that correct?
I actually read that the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I will not pretend to be an expert on crossing the border, but I did read that recently that you don't actually need a passport. But don't quote me on that. Look it up. The biggest thing to do is to know before you go. Look it up. Find out from what you need to know. The other thing is as RG is stating, advanced driver's license. So there's enhanced driver's license, I think it's called on our side of the border. And
I think that's what it's called here too.
Yeah, so the enhanced driver's license is definitely a border crossing thing as well. And with the Nexus cards, if you do have a Nexus, everybody that's traveling with you has to have a Nexus to be able to use the Nexus lane. That is one thing. So if I've got a Nexus and Helen didn't have one, for example, we'd still be in the long lineup.
Yeah, now I think I might have missed the actual answer to the advanced or the enhanced driver's license. And my understanding is no, that does not work for even the ground crossing.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. You can use
my
the
understanding was
advanced.
it had to be passport now.
No, I don't believe so. But you can get information about that off of the CBSA or the American equivalent website about what's required right today. As you're approaching the border, if you're in your vehicle and you're driving towards the border from either side, there's websites that show you the conditions at all the 4 nearby border crossings. And so you can choose which one you want to go to based on the conditions. Like if you see that P-Sarge has a half an hour lineup and one closer to the TradeX has 5 minutes, you can choose, make your journey choices based on that. So you can look that up online. Mm-hmm. And as you drive closer as well, there's great big signs, illuminated signs over the freeway telling you the waits at the border crossings.
And those sites also have webcams to let you see the actual lineup, so you can verify, that is a 5 minute, or that doesn't look like it's a 5 minute anymore. So
Very cool. We have another comment that says that the passport card will work as well as the passport book, and that is true for ground crossings in, I believe, all of North America, which is Mexico and
only the passport card is good for ground and sea, I believe. Not
air is different.
Yeah.
So I keep my passport card in my wallet, which is shielded so nobody can zap it. But that's all I use. I just, there's this little scanner as you come up, you hold your passport card out there. You have no idea if anything's happening. And they come up and they look at you and they mention your name and it's like, oh, I guess it worked. How about that? So
you roll their eyes and go, oh, you again.
You again. Yeah.
We have a note from Jim Stark that there's 2 levels of the enhanced driver's license. Ohio is good for U.S. air travel, but not Canadian travel.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Stark.
So I believe that's what I've heard before, is that you still need the passport regardless to get back into the U.S. from Canada or Mexico, passport or passport card.
Well, you know what I can tell you is that Christy from the Geo Travelers there has done a lot of research on getting all the right links. So if you go to geowoodstock.com, we actually have links to where all the current information on all these questions is.
And that's current as of now. So don't forget, anything can change. You'll want to check closer to their trip.
And as we kind of alluded to earlier on, we as in, Chris and I are thinking that we're probably going to see some kind of travel changes in the future.
Mm-hmm.
We have no confirmation or anything, just, our hunch. Having lived through 9/11.
Exactly. Now, I know the Washington State driver's license, there has been a push that it's not valid for international travel. You can't just use your driver's license. You have to use something else. That deadline has been pushed, and I don't know the dates. I just know it has. I want to say June, that you have to have more than just your Washington State driver's license. And that affects, as far as I know, just a few states, Washington being one of them. And after that, I didn't care anymore.
Are you suggesting that you can't drive in British Columbia with a Washington State license?
For identification, possibly not.
I think you can rent a car and drive, though.
I'm pretty sure you can rent a car. Usually, the international driver's licenses are if you're somewhere for a longer period of time.
No.
Or
there's something with a few states' driver's license that they're not meeting federal standards for identification.
Okay.
And Washington State is one of those. So they need to change the Washington State driver's license to meet federal standards. It does not as of this point. And I want to say that deadline was, coming up here in the next month or so, and they've pushed that out because of, the situation.
We don't want everybody going to the DMV right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be the security enhancements or things that are encrypted into the driver's licenses that Washington hasn't caught up on that yet.
Something like that, yes.
Right. Or they're too easy to forge, and I'll have to get rid of all those Washington State driver's licenses I've been flogging.
Good thing this is on the internet. Whew.
Everybody in Washington's way too laid back. I'm like,
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I believe this is only for the border crossing. So
I agree. Well, it would be for the border crossing or any international travel.
Right. So the driver's licenses themselves would still be honored for visitors in the other country. But the enhancements are only for the border crossings.
Correct.
All right.
I'm going to look up what's going on. So you guys talk amongst yourself.
Well, let's move on to caching, because you wanted to talk a little bit, I think, about difference between phones and GPSRs up there.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody can cache by whatever device they like to cache by, of course. People know my preference because I've been on the show a few times, especially me and Mr. Burks duking it out. But, whether you cache by phone or GPSR, one of the key things we want to remind you is that, as Chris said, right off the start, Landshark's Chris, right off the start of the show here, very easily, very readily, you can be up into the mountains or outside of the Fraser Valley where you can lose phone service. So you definitely want to, if you're planning to cache by phone, make sure that you're ready to cache offline on your phone. Always keep in mind that trail maps for offline caching on the phones aren't 100% accurate, especially in British Columbia. We have a bit of a trend going on in our North Shore Mountains of us having to rescue people who go hiking by phone. So don't be one of those people, please. And it's one of the things to keep in mind, definitely, that there's no reason you can't cache by phone up here, but be ready that you should be all set to cache offline by phone.
Excellent point. And even if you are using the GPSR and have your maps, make sure you have the maps for British Columbia, because a lot of those U.S. GPSRs are just the U.S. states. They're not.
It's a good pro tip. Yeah.
Yeah. I've gotten stung with that before,
Also, with the cell phones, I think this is probably more for Canadians going south. But you want to make sure that if you're going to be caching by cell phone, you want to know whether or not you're going to have data plan, and it's relatively expensive for Canadians to use data plans in the States. But you want to make sure your plan covers you in the other country.
What we hear quite often from travelers and people that come up here and stop by our store is that they find that when they have their home data plans, often do cover Canada, and they're a lot less expensive than what we pay to use our data in the U.S. So a lot of other countries, Europe especially, they can cache over here and use they've got the like Roam Like Home or something like that, or worldwide data, and it's really cheap. really cheap.
We
so don't
actually
worry
have,
that it's going to be expensive.
Yeah, most of our major plans have some kind of on par roaming. The
Good.
catch is with many of those, it's at a reduced speed. So that's something to keep in mind.
Ooh.
But that doesn't necessarily cause a real problem for caching, because you're
No,
not.
but it will if you're trying to download the live maps. That's where you typically will run into the issue.
But like
So-
you said, plan to offline caching.
Exactly. GSM times 2 said he's going to have to learn to set up his GPSR to read in meters, not in feet.
Yes. Yeah, because feet don't work in Canada. You'll just get lost.
Yeah, we don't have feet here. We just sort of wobble around and
These are beaver tails.
yeah, that's right. Flop, 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 flop. The
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say a lot of the hints that people will put in cache descriptions and stuff will be in metrics. So just a meter think of a meter as a yard, and you're all good though.
Yeah, pretty much. But we also got a comment from Kuhn and Bud that recommends Cachely offline buying the maps. It's worth every cent you pay, he says, which I happen to agree.
I do too. And not only is it super value for money because it's actually not expensive, but you're also supporting an excellent program.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that we talked about was make sure to update those maps before you head out. Yeah, GPS, phone, whatever. Make sure you're updating those maps. And another quick tip on that is if you're driving with Google Maps, it will allow you to cache those maps into your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just make sure to do it within 30 days because after 30 days they expire.
There is a lot of free Wi-Fi in Canada. Like we're going to have it at the Trade X. You'll find it at hotels and coffee shops, and even some municipalities have hotspots throughout their towns. And so, if you realize you haven't updated your Pucko query and you want to bring in something new, it's going to be pretty easy to find hotspots to do that once you're up here. So don't panic if you're in the border lineup and you haven't updated stuff. There's a lot of free Wi-Fi up in Canada.
Oh, we always have to panic.
Just make time for Tim Hortons and you're all good.
Well, yeah, you're not allowed to cross back across the border until you've had your Timmies.
Yeah.
You have to show a receipt for Tim Hortons in order to cross the Canadians allow you back into the U.S.
Or a
Right.
50 pack of Timbits. Yeah.
Well, as long as you have your receipt, you're fine. You
Yes,
could
but
have already assumed that
you have to eat the Timbits before you get back into the U.S.
No.
You're
bring
not
it
allowed
back.
to bring the food.
No, you can bring Timbits. I do it all the time.
Oh, do they actually allow that?
Ask Chris.
I have received 50 boxes of Timbits myself. Yes.
Nice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Monkey.
Next time
got
I'm going down, I'm bringing Nanaimo bars for Chris.
Ooh, there you go.
Timbits are completely out now.
Yep.
On a Boat says, just don't eat too many Timbits.
They're not fattening; they're just the holes out of the donuts. So they're actually.
There's no calories.
That's right. So you
Yeah.
can eat as many. You can eat as many as you want.
No calories, no carb, because it's just a hole.
Exactly.
And Trexer says, never look panicked in the border lineup. That is an excellent.
That's a good
pro-
advice.
Pro
Yeah.
tip.
And also, please don't judge Canada by Tim Hortons.
There you go.
No.
Fair enough.
And I would say also, don't judge Tim Hortons by the Tim Hortons in the U.S.
Yes, I have been to Timmy's in the U.S. as
Timmy's in the U.S. are not Timmy's.
well. They're
we'll
not.
move on.
And Timmy's is we just love it because it's Canadian. Well, it used to be, anyways.
GSM times 2 wants to know what Canadians have to buy before they return to Canada, and I think that's regional. I don't think that's a national thing.
Gas.
Scotch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheese.
cheese,
and
milk.
scotch, and gas.
And gas.
Yeah.
There you
Duty
go.
free.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so getting back to the caching, what tips do you have for caching on the trails?
So I'll start with this one, but I'll get the rest of my team to weigh in. If you've ever listened to Caching in the Northwest or you follow any of my social media, you know where I'm about to go. But it's the 3 T's. They're absolutely essential if you're going on the trails in British Columbia. In fact, anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, we're going to insist that you do this. And that the 3 T's are trip plan, take the essentials and train. Especially up here in the Pacific Northwest, our trails can be rugged. You need to pay attention to the cache descriptions and the trail write-ups. Know what you're getting into. But I'll flip it over to the rest of my team to talk about the 3 T's here. Not all at once. Pace yourself.
I think knowing what you're going to get into is really big. You can be fairly close to an urban area, and all of a sudden you realize you're going up some very steep terrain, and it can get really nasty really quick. So pay attention to the difficulty terrain ratings on the caches and the descriptions. Maybe even read a few of the previous logs so you're just familiar with what it is you're getting into, and then prepare. The weather can change super fast, so if it's it should be fine in the summertime, especially if you got sort of a consistent, weather forecast for nice weather, which is often the case. But a lot of the year here, you start off on what appears to be a really nice morning, and the next thing you know, it's pouring down rain and really cold. So you want to be sure that you've got the clothing and the footwear to be able to be okay in what you're getting into.
Take water. Bring water,
yeah.
And bring gloves.
Why?
Gloves? Why? So you don't have to touch gross things.
There's nothing that's going to really do too much to you, like really bad. Bears and cougars and things like that will eat you, but there's not too many around. They keep their distance.
Gloves aren't going to help you.
The gloves aren't you can whack the bear on the nose with the gloves, and I don't know. I heard it probably wouldn't work.
I think that's what you're supposed to do to a shark.
Yeah.
I
Hit it on the nose.
Predators mixed up here.
I don't go caching in flip-flops on the trails up here. And
I've seen that.
We've seen it, unless you're Annie.
Yeah.
And bring a layer. It doesn't hurt to stuff a raincoat in your backpack just in case you need it.
Absolutely. I want to talk just a little bit about trip planning though, because that's something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
So up here in Canada, we actually have an app. So even if you're from the US or Europe, when you're in Canada, you can use this app. It's called the Trip Plan app. It's from Adventure Smart BC. Download it, install it on your phone, and it really just makes life simple. But in essence, any kind of trip plan, if you're going out on a trail, is absolutely essential. And all it has to include is where are you going, which could be a GC code or coordinates. When are you going there? When do you expect to be back? Who's your emergency contact? And approximately, roughly, what kind of gear do you have? And if you can have that information on a sheet of paper, fold it up and put it on the seat of your rental car. If you, in the best case scenario is you take that piece of paper and you hand it to a responsible adult, or email that info, or use the Adventure Smart BC Trip Plan app. Any way, just let somebody know where you're going, when you're going to be back, and what kind of stuff are you taking with you. And that is a trip plan. And then that way, if something happens, you can get rescued.
We don't want to make it sound like too scary of a place, because it's just, if you're doing your regular urban or rural caching, it's like that's not so necessary. But as we said, it's within 15 or within 20 minutes, you can be in some pretty wild places. So if you are going on the trails or up into the woods away from civilization, then that's definitely something to do.
I think for the most part, geocachers are prepared and thinking ahead. But there are times that, hey, we're just going to go out for, a couple of quick caches. What's the worst that could happen? Sometimes the worst happens. It doesn't matter where you are. So be prepared, just know that, things can happen.
And we have amazing search and rescue teams up here in British Columbia. And I know you do in Washington State as well. And they're awesome and they're super busy during the summer. So, let's not make them any busier than they need to be.
They're wonderful.
I was just going to say,
you just don't want to have to meet them at work.
Yeah. Part of the problem is they're wonderful because they get a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's the headlines, geocacher rescued from such and such mountain. Really, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So let's not have any of those.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't be that cacher. Hey, this sounds like a new segment.
Don't be that dasher.
So for the training part of it, I can speak to that. Something that comes to mind, two tools of the trade, or just, preparedness that I usually have with me if I'm going out into bear country, would be certainly a bear banger and bear spray. Two things that you really want to know how to use if you're going to need to use it. Like a bear banger, you need to know how to load it. You need to know where to shoot it and when, because you want to shoot a bear banger so that it comes between you and the bear, scaring it away, not beyond the bear, scaring it towards you. Makes a big difference. And bear spray, most people don't know how short of a shot you actually have of bear spray. Mine, I think it's got maybe 8 seconds of spray. So you want to know exactly when you're going to have to use it.
That is good to know. Those are two things I've never actually used.
If you do have, like, it's easy to get hold of these things, but if you have a bear banger, for example, it's a good idea to actually use it at least once, and just to experience it, so you can get a sense of what it does and how to use it.
Not in your backyard.
Not in your backyard, yeah. Out in the woods somewhere where nobody's going to hear it going off. What is a bear banger is a question. So we have basically it's a small little charge. The one I have is a small little.
Do you want me to go grab yours?
Yeah.
I'll go grab it.
Okay, Helen's going to go grab it. We won't set it off in the house.
It's kind of almost like a bottle rocket.
Of Chris shooting it off.
Yeah. So it's a small little.
Getting the impression it's like a little flare gun.
It's like a little flare gun. The one I've got is actually it looks like a pen, actually. It's small, but you put a little charge in it. You just pull back a little trigger. It fires off a round, if you like, just a kind of like a flare up into the sky. It doesn't actually set off a light flare. So this is, for those that are actually watching live, that's the actual bear banger. That's the, I'll work backwards here. That's the charge. So you unscrew that. You pull back the little trigger into a safety mech. You put that on, and then you point that in the direction that you want. You pull back this and let it fire off, and it's got a little this will fly about 20 or 30 feet, and then and it sounds like a shotgun. So it flies about 20 or 30 feet, and then you hear the bang. And the idea is, of course, that it'll scare a bear.
And so this one says bear, and the reason is because the same unit can also be used for a flare. So these are marked flare.
Yeah.
So in your panic, if you're grabbing them, you make sure and grab the right one. So we have them labeled.
There you go. There's a picture of it. Yeah,
awesome.
Perfect. So they're a great little thing, but yeah, you definitely want to give it a try just so you're familiar with how it works, and you know how far it flies, what it sounds like, and then you're just a little bit more prepared if you know how to use your gear.
We carry it in a cash and carry trackables bag.
GSM Times 2 has a good point, though, that they cannot go on a plane, and they probably can't go across the border either.
I'm not sure.
Don't know about bringing them across the border. I would check.
Check
sure. First.
Yeah.
But even if they can't, the thing is that we have tons of great retail outlets where you can get them at a very reasonable price, and they're open all the time. So super easy to get your hands on bear spray or bear bangers.
You can also get bear bells. They're just a small bell that you stick on your backpack. And we were going to make some. Jay knows where this is going. I wanted to make some and have the words "Don't be a turd, use your bear bell" written on the bear bell. And there's a joke up here. How do you tell the difference between a grizzly bear and a black bear, or grizzly bear poop and black bear poop? And the grizzly bear poop smells like pepper and has little bells in it.
I think you scared C. Michelle because he's saying that people are worried about the Aussie animals. Aussie animals don't chase you.
No, they just kill you where you stand.
They just look at you and you die. Yeah. Here they have to catch you and eat you. And you only have to be faster than the slowest person in your group.
Yes.
Of course.
So you don't have to be a particularly fast runner. Yeah.
Well, Trexler's tip is that bear spray does not work like bug spray.
No.
It all depends on how you feel about your friends, but yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that almost sounds like someone who's had experience.
Mm.
Oh, here, let me put some bear spray on you. You'll be fine.
My in-laws actually tried to use bear spray on a bee's nest one time. Bad idea.
Oh,
Don't recommend that.
I don't even want to think about what's going to happen when you try that. So let's move on and talk about the events themselves.
awesome. Well, Helen already mentioned that we're going to have Wi-Fi at the major event locations. That's the TradeX and the Abbotsford Ag Rec Center. But you're always best off to have your own mobile data plan and plan how you want to do that ahead of time. But there's definitely going to be adventure labs, so you're going to want data for that. There's several for the event, but there's also plenty of great adventure labs that are being created right now and put out into our region by others. Everybody knows there's been a big flood of adventure labs that have gone out. And I have to say, the geocachers in Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley have self-organized themselves to try and really collaborate on placing the adventure labs, and they're doing a fantastic job so far. But of course, as everybody knows, you need data to do adventure labs. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I'll mention is we have an event scheduled for the historic town of Fort Langley, which is adjacent to the city of Abbotsford. And there is a fantastic Where I Go you'll also want to do. And Where I Go's can require data depending on how you do it. But that's as well as there's going to be an adventure lab in Fort Langley to do as well. So things to be thinking about when you're coming up.
And definitely make sure to download that cartridge before you head out, just in case you have data problems.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And GSM times 2 is giving us the update that we're at 2809 will attends.
Getting close.
Getting close, less than 200 from a giga.
Yay.
Awesome. You guys and the rest of my busy beaver team want to talk about things people should be thinking about for the events for currency or meals.
Yeah, so currency, certainly we accept credit cards up in Canada. You won't find a ton of places that accept American Express, but Visa, MasterCard, definitely you'll be able to use. Cash, you'll probably want to get Canadian dollars. Again, there's a few places that might take US. For the most part, Canadian dollars if you're wanting to use cash. So plan ahead.
And
right
a quick note about using the credit card. Check your credit card, because many credit cards in the US will charge an interest rate daily for foreign purchases. So if you're purchasing outside of US currency, you will have to pay the cash advance, or sometimes a lesser, but some kind of regular fee. That has been going away, but you'll still find most cards that do that.
You can also use your bank card just to use funds directly from your checking account or your savings account. So that's always the option here, is to use debit. We call it debit card, but it's your.
That'll have, as long as it says Interact on the back.
Interact, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be another way that wouldn't incur the fees that the credit card companies are charging potentially.
And tap is really common for a lot of credit card machines. So things like Apple Pay and stuff like that will work on those ones as well. So you can, if you got an Apple Watch or Apple phone, or they'll often be totally doable in the on the credit card machines.
Excellent. Yeah, good tip too.
So we can talk a little bit about the meals, food, dietary things. I'll start off, but I'm gonna flip it over to Helen and Christy in a moment, because they know way more about this than I do. And they'll probably want to talk about the infamous Nanaimo bars. But in our region here in the Northwest, but specifically in British Columbia and even more specifically in Abbotsford, we have a huge ethnic diversity. And so there are just so many different amazing restaurants and types of food available, and so many varieties to accommodate various food allergies, because we have a lot of attentiveness to that in a lot of our restaurants and grocery stores. So regardless of what it is that you want to eat, you're going to find the options here for sure. we have plenty of shops and restaurants to fit almost every craving you might have. But Helen or Christy, do you guys want to talk a little bit more about the food from the events?
The one thing I found out today, actually, from the catering department at the TradeX that are creating the buffet for us, is if somebody is celiac, they have offered to make a separate plate for them, so they don't have to. Those people going through the buffet don't have to worry about the tongs, perhaps getting cross-contaminated with something. So that's something new that we're able to offer on a case-by-case basis. So we've had a couple of people email and ask if, true celiac can be accommodated. And yes, that is something that the TradeX has said today they can definitely accommodate. So that's really nice that they offered that.
Very nice.
So there is also, there's a buffet and it's accessible only through the registration packages. And the buffet is going to have on it some very Canadian things like a poutine bar and Nanaimo bars and butter tarts, things like that. So there is a cafeteria. We have had some questions. There is a cafeteria there, but they won't have the same sort of special selection that we've put together for the event. We've put together with the catering staff there, a buffet that's really, it's designed to give visitors a great experience, but that buffet is only available through our registration process.
Yeah, I think we have pulled pork on the buffet as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's locally sourced. The items, the bakeries that are local bakeries. So the TradeX is using their own in-house kitchens. Local farms are being sourced for the pork, and for the Nanaimo bars are being made at a bakery just down the street.
Nanaimo bars.
Helen, I thought you were making those yourself.
No, those are actually the ultra special ones, are the ones that we make.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds delicious. I mean, I love that everything is local. It's going to be fresh, and it's going to be very Canadian so you can have that experience. Do you think everybody knows what poutine is, or does that have to be explained?
Well, just in case, poutine is actually a French-Canadian dish originally, and it's French fries with gravy, and the true poutine has cheese curds, so like unripe fresh cheese that squeaks. It's so fresh it squeaks when you chew it. So like a good cheese curds like that. So poutine has grown and evolved over the years. So a lot of times it's made with like a mozzarella type cheese, but basically a young fresh cheese with gravy and French fries. And then in some cases there's other toppings like pulled pork and a variety of other things can go on to poutines. But originally French Canadian. Hence the poutine, very very French word. They say with a French accent, and it sounds even better. and it's good. It's totally bad for you, but it's great stuff.
And to explain a Nanaimo bar, I just saw that question come up. It's basically a triple layer bar. The bottom layer is coconut chocolate, and then there's a custard layer. It looks quite nice and yellow. And then the top layer will be like a chocolate ganache layer. And together it is just a lovely, yes, there it is. They're delicious.
The yellow in the middle layer is created by using the bird's custard powder, the British bird's custard powder.
But it's not just straight up custard though. It's got
it's not.
It's got a different texture, and it's got some lots of sugar.
Delicious.
Yeah, it is. If you want more, Helen's are only available to listeners of this podcast. That's funny. GSM times two. They're only available to people who go to the Shark store on the correct Saturday, I think is how that actually works.
That's right.
Yeah, they're in the Shark store some Fridays.
Random Fridays.
Because I make them during the Caching in the Northwest podcast and then take them to the office the next day.
And Chris and I weep. But yeah,
not this Chris. Chris eats them.
Chris Umpenauer and I weep. Yes.
Yeah. Daryl, I had no idea how much baking was done during podcasts.
It's amazing, isn't it? I know a lot of people who do that.
Yeah, we're here talking, and people around the country are baking.
Which is
and they're
awesome.
not sharing with us.
Well, and speaking of people baking, baking but sharing, the slogan for the city of Abbotsford is homegrown and handmade. And really, that is going to be your experience when you come and visit. Abbotsford is a city in the country. There's plenty of farm markets, small businesses, crafts, and craft makers. And we're also going to have a number of those folks who are going to have booths at the event, I believe, if I'm not speaking out of turn. I see nodding of heads.
We're attracting them. Yes.
That's perfect. But even when you're not at the event, when you're out geocaching, you'll be having the opportunity to check out many of these amazing local businesses, and it's just a wonderful place to visit.
There's one adventure lab that we're going to be working on that's going to take people out and about to some of these areas where there are farm stalls, out and about to some of the places where there's farm stalls.
Oh, nice.
To make it easy to find them, we will guide you through the region where you'll find the farm stalls with the fresh things that you're going to want to stock up on.
You guys have thought of everything.
We hope so.
And we try. Yeah.
We try. We're doing our best.
We'll find out how much we didn't think of when it all afterwards.
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are running long. So before we let you go, tell us real quick where we can find like the website that you guys keep referring to.
At GeoWoodstock, just Google geowoodstock.com, and you'll find all of our information. The URL changes from event to event each year. So we're geowoodstock.com.
Yeah, it's actually the same. GeoWoodstock.com has been used year after year after year. So if you've ever been to a GeoWoodstock, it's the same website. Just go to geowoodstock.com, and that'll change as GeoWoodstocks change. It gets reused by the next one.
Sure.
Yeah, different website, like the content on the website changes.
Yeah,
the
same URL.
The same. Yeah.
There you go.
And GC code.
What about the event itself? There you go, Land Monkey. Do you know the GC code right off the top of your head? You have it?
I had it written on my hand in Texas. Yeah, it's GC86 Victor Delta Foxtrot. And yeah, that's the only GC code I know.
Well, you got to know at least one, right?
Yeah.
And if you haven't logged your will attend on there, please do if you're planning to come.
Because they're less than 200 away from a Giga event, folks. If you're coming, you want to make sure it's that Giga event. So make sure you log now.
Yeah,
Yes.
Looking forward to late August. Beautiful time to be up here.
Oh, yes. The weather is fantastic.
It is the best time in BC. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, the entire Geo Woodstock crew is here with us tonight. We appreciate the time you spent with us tonight, but more than that, we appreciate the time you've spent in this, almost year building up to it. So thank you for all you do. We are excited to hit the event this year.
Looking forward to seeing you guys.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the Geo Gearheads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. Geo Gearheads is produced by Chris Suffenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2020 by Daryl Wanberg, all rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.